Hello and welcome to a new podcast episode of Nina's Apothecary, and I'm very excited that you're joining us again. Whether you're tuning in with video and audio or just audio, thank you for your always cool messages, feedback and reviews. I love it, please keep it up. Today we'll discuss a topic that concerns us all, not just women but men too, as it involves beauty, beauty ideals, and I'll also debunk some beauty myths. I find it fascinating to understand what this is all about and why we are all so focused on being beautiful and youthful. I can only explain this by the fact that beauty is always linked with youth, and youth and vitality are naturally linked with health. For us humans, it often comes down to genetics and reproduction, and naturally we can do this best with people who are healthy and young, because eventually we are no longer able to reproduce, which is why this beauty ideal of youth is so spot on and important. Even though beauty ideals always change dramatically over the years, sometimes one thing is in and then another thing is out, but overall, the theme of youth is something that really stays with us for a long time, whether it's a few kilos less, a few more, slightly longer, slightly shorter hair. But it's usually really about smooth skin, big eyes, everything that embodies youth in our minds or wherever it comes from. It seems to me that nowadays the topic of beauty and beauty ideals has gained even more importance because of all the social media, because of the filters, because everything in this seemingly perfect world is dominated by it. And it's also very important to me on my social channels that I show a lot of reality, that it's not all filters, not just a perfect world. So you might see me crying there or just saying that today has been really tough, because that's what social media is about for me, and you are welcome to check it out. The more private stuff is on Instagram, Nina Milenk, if you want more tips and tricks for all sorts of things, whether it's always about beauty, losing weight, or whatever, then check out TikTok of Frau Apotheker. What is important to me is that we understand that these beauty ideals, all these filters, this perfect world, it's cool. I think it's great, because it's the counter movement to the news and to the always bad news, because we can just look at something beautiful. But it also does a lot with us, with our minds, with our beauty ideals, with our images, and especially with the youth, with the children. So there's a lot of educational work to be done, I would say. Because it's not always just beautiful and it's not always just holiday, and it's very important not to lose touch with reality, no matter how long you spend on social channels. I'd like to dive right back in and mention a few keywords or ingredients that you always hear in connection with beauty. And the first topic is collagen. I have already made a separate podcast episode about it. You can check it out. It's one of the most successful ones, where it's about whether the collagen hype is really justified or whether it's just a hype like so many others. Just a word about that. Yes, it really is justified because collagen is a protein, and we are also made up of a lot of protein, and collagen makes up 30% of the protein content in our body. This means that we can already deduce that it will be very important. Of course, we're familiar with beauty as having firm skin, beautiful skin, less cellulite, but it's also very much about our connective tissue, which lies underneath, supports our organs, and is important, for example, to prevent hernias like inguinal or umbilical hernias. And, I'm not really a fan of taking collagen, which is a relatively large protein, from fish waste or slaughterhouse waste, firstly because the idea of it grosses me out, and secondly because I generally don't consume animal products. Therefore, I've looked more closely at this protein and found that every third link is an amino acid called glycine, which signals the body to synthesize collagen. Of course, you also need other things like vitamin C, but that's the key point. And this glycine can also be produced from plant-based sources. That's why I have my 100% pure glycine powder that I love, which you'll see me using everywhere because it's slightly sweet. I add it to my coffee, to yogurt, wherever, and this allows my body to produce collagen itself. The second thing you often hear about is hyaluronic acid, both topically and internally. Does it deserve the hype? Is it as great as everyone says? Or is it just a marketing ploy? It is indeed justified, I can tell you. Because hyaluronic acid is also a substance naturally produced by the body. That's always really cool. Important because just like with collagen and hyaluron, these substances, which our bodies can also produce or are native to us, naturally start to decrease after the age of 25. And it would be great if we could somehow get them into our bodies in other ways. And now there are also ways to produce hyaluronic acid from plant-based sources instead of needing to extract it from rooster combs. And what hyaluronic acid does is really great. It binds water, and thereby it is naturally associated with moisture and glow. And that's really cool. Not just for fine lines and wrinkles, of course, but also in our eyes, in our mucous membranes. That's super important, even in our joints. If you've ever had issues with your knees or something, there's hyaluronic acid that can be injected into the knee, because there it acts like a joint lubricant. So it has many great functions, and both for external use and internal intake, there are studies showing that it really works well. It's always important to pay attention to which product you're taking or applying, because there are huge differences, and you need to be careful, especially if the products for ingestion are registered as cosmetic items. They usually have no studies. Does it really get to where it needs to go? So if you have any questions, feel free to write to me, for example, on social media or on my website, karish.at, or come by Adler Pharmacy or talk to me on the street. I always enjoy seeing you. There are surely 1,000 other keywords and substances, both internal and external, where we can do something good for our body in terms of beauty. Also, if you have questions, feel free to contact me anytime. I'll now debunk a few beauty myths, starting with the first one. The more expensive the product, the better. And I must say, there are probably few people or women who haven't been fooled by this, because I often feel the same way. There are those incredibly cool boutiques or corners where you just think, wow, this looks so cool, and the product is also so expensive. It must work incredibly well. Of course, that could be the case, but it doesn't have to be. This means that the effectiveness does not correlate with the price, not at all, because most often there are many other factors that make up the price, such as packaging, marketing, advertising, and these have nothing to do with the quality of the product. If you really want to be sure about what you are applying to your face or body, we can mix products for you ourselves. Even for me, despite having studied pharmacy, the ingredient listings on cosmetic articles are super confusing because the cosmetics regulation doesn't require them to write down how much of what is inside. It's a bit opaque, and also the order, that the most abundant ingredient must be listed first. Then it's usually water or some type of fat content. Well, I don't need to buy water in this jar in any composition either. So of course you can always send me something if you have questions. But the easiest thing would be to use something that you can be sure about. We also have our own line of cosmetics. And maybe the second myth is also interesting, namely that what is natural is always better than what is not natural. So, natural cosmetics are always better than non-natural cosmetics. Here too, I must say be careful, because what exactly is defined as natural cosmetics by the respective companies might not be so cool. First of all, with these natural products, there are many opportunities to develop allergies because they are natural, and what can also happen is that because they don't contain preservatives, they might quickly become rancid, or there might be bacteria in them, or they might produce bacteria. Because what happens if I imagine a jar and I stick my finger into it every day, even if they are clean and washed, dirt, bacteria, viruses still get in there, and if this jar is also in the bathroom where it's a bit warmer or at room temperature, then they have the perfect environment to multiply. That means, that was the first thing, usually we know from completely natural things, whether we buy vegetables or fruit, even in the fridge they won't last half a year. So, first of all, I would always put this jar of natural cosmetics in the fridge, and secondly, always take it out with a sterile spatula. Then it already becomes complicated, and then these apps come into play, which then indicate that there is a preservative contained, or this is now bad, or this is possibly now hormone active. Caution is also advised there. Because there are also natural preservatives, for example, if we think of a banana and we cut it open, it will turn brown very quickly, because it doesn't need it inside since it has a peel that protects it. If we do the same now with a strawberry, it will take longer, or nothing will happen at first, because it has natural preservatives inside. And of course, we often take inspiration from nature and have even extracted natural preservatives from strawberries, which could then be in creams, for example. This means that just because there is a preservative, it doesn't automatically have to be chemical or bad. And the same goes for natural cosmetics. Just because it is natural doesn't automatically mean it will be better tolerated than a chemically produced cream, for example. Then we have beauty myth number 3. More is always better. But that doesn't have to be the case, because what is definitely important is cleaning your face twice a day. I would never skip that, followed by a tonic, then a serum or cream. But it doesn't help if I apply 10 different creams on top of each other or overcare for my skin, because you might know this, there is a condition called perioral dermatitis, which is often caused by overcare. It might not always be the case, but it can happen. And then the dermatologist or even the pharmacist might say, well, please do less because your skin might just be over-irritated. What I definitely often do is switch my creams so that my skin doesn't always get the same ingredients and can have a variety, just like we don't eat the same thing every day, which is always a good tip, whether it's about teas or creams or whatever. So this more is always more. Of course, doesn't have to be true. My last, and again a very important beauty myth that I would like to debunk, is that we only need sunscreen on sunny days. No, please not. Everyone who follows me on Instagram knows I always use sunscreen because the sun is there even when it rains or it's cloudy. Otherwise it wouldn't be light, and of course you don't notice it as much. But usually, like with a window pane, for example, only the bad rays get through, the UVA rays, which do everything that starts with A, allergy, aging, and other things. So always use sunscreen, which is really cool. I have sunscreen in my day cream and an additional sunscreen in my makeup. And at the door, I have something that I apply to my hand, also to prevent, for example, age spots, because it's important to me. So please always use sunscreen, even in winter, even when it rains. And if you think of other beauty myths, let me know. Write to me or talk to me. I am always thrilled about input. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And cherish yourself.